Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Terry Talk. Wanted to focus in on culture this week. Read this very interesting little tidbit just recently, and it was talking about the COVID generation, those employees in our organizations that joined our organizations during COVID. So all they really know is working from home and at best, a hybrid environment. And the article was talking about what impact that's going to have on culture. So I wanted to sort of back things up a little bit and talk about culture in its pure sense. What is culture? It's this sort of nebulous, unknown, weird sort of thing that we all kind of think we know, but kind of really haven't defined well. I think you can sum it up with things like the company's beliefs and values and attitudes, how all of those influence how people behave inside the organizations. And what we know about culture is this: when your culture aligns with your strategy, it is awesome. It accelerates your growth. You get employee engagement, your risks are reduced, it builds your brand. When you've got a misalignment, though, it can get pretty messy pretty fast. So let's talk about it real quick. What is this thing called culture? I think you can look at a couple things, like symbols, for example, inside the organizations, how you lay out the organization. Is it a hybrid organization? Is it an organization, the cubicle farms that we've seen in the past? Is it individualized offices? Do we have uniforms? What's the dress code like? All these things send subtle messages to the employees around how one should behave inside the organization. And that trends into how things evolve inside the organization, artifacts that exist inside the organization, simple things like the bronzed shovel for when the first shovel in the ground, the ribbon cutting ceremony pictures, the pictures of the napkin for the first business plan was ever evolved from, those kinds of things. And some of you may still have these, but remember those motivational posters from years ago that adorned seemingly everybody's wall. It's tired now, I'd argue. Things like the symbols, we were talked about that, but like acronyms and rituals, ceremonies. Do you celebrate everyone's birthday? Do you celebrate significant events? Those kinds of things. Stories, the folklore that exists inside the organization. What gets talked about inside the organization? What gets celebrated inside the organization? What gets sort of poo-pooed inside the organization? The values, and what are they? And are they lived? Or they even talked about it all? The leadership, senior leadership, the tone from the top, as it were. What's that look like? And of course, the onboarding or socialization of new employees into the organization has a profound reflection, hopefully, of what the culture is all about. So if you want to change your culture, first thing is it aligned with your strategy? It ought to be, because as we said, when it's aligned, it's awesome. And if you want to change your culture, you change those things: symbols, rituals, folklore, the values, your senior leadership tone from the top, your onboarding, how you onboard people inside the organization. Here's the deal: there's no one right culture. Everyone is distinct, but it should be aligned back to your strategy. Over 85% of employees and over 90% of executives agree culture is critical to our success. And we've certainly seen the data that supports that. So if we want to change our culture, we need to be able to measure our culture. And this is where a lot of organizations fall down. There's lots of different ways you can do that. The one we prefer is the Competing Values Framework. Comes out of the University of Michigan. They have 4 different types of cultures. It's a nice 2x2 matrix. Everybody has some sort of position. Every organization rather has some sort of element, but there's on each one of those dimensions. But there's usually 1 or 2 that stand out. And each one of those has its pros and cons. So you want to measure, where are you and where do you want to be? And then look at that as that differentiates or is similar, consistent across senior leaders, mid managers, frontline employees. And then based on that information, then you know what to go back and look for and change in order to align with their strategy going forward and where you need to go next. culture doesn't have to be a nebulous thing. Culture can be measured, can be aligned to your strategy, and can become a huge competitive advantage for you. As always, they'd love to talk about these sorts of things. Drop us some comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. Want to talk more about culture? Let's talk. Love talking about this stuff, and we'll see you again soon.